Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, as always, the king of landing is here today, bringing you guys and gals Bleach, Tite Kubo, the person whose name is synonymous with the word troll, Tite Kubo's finest wig. Now, this is Bleach chapters 633 and 634 review. If you haven't seen my live reaction of 634 in this corner right here, that is my right, your left. Now, these chapters are simple, straightforward, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, like a hot knife through butter. You get my point. The first chapter, I called it. I told you guys that Bazz-B was going to be very jealous, very salty, shocked at the idea that Jugo, Hashford, the person who he always found inferior to himself, winds up being someone on a much higher level. And not only that, but is the main reason why he is a quote-unquote genius, why his powers are blooming. Because Jugo is inadvertently giving his powers to Bazz-B the entire time when they were kids, when they were training. And this just, it has a, basically it puts a huge burden on the psyche of Bazz-B. Bazz-B can't comprehend that shit. He can't handle that. Like, hold on, what? What do you mean? What the fuck? Like, that's bullshit. And in his rage, he tries to attack fucking Bach. But Jugo stops that shit like, hold your horses there. What are you doing with the arrow? Fuck out of here. I'm saving your life. So, I call that. Furthermore, in 633, again, we find out that Jugo has the powers that are very similar to Yuha. He can't absorb Reishi, but what he can do is that he can distribute his powers to others and then retake those powers that have been cultivated as his own. And that's pretty crazy. And apparently Yuha, the reason why he knows that Jugo is the one that has very similar powers to him is because of his eyes, his fucking all-seeing crazy shit. So my question is this, because we know that Uryu has the potential to surpass Yuha. Is Uryu one of these Quincy's too? Because I question that a little bit, because I really do. And because we've seen Uryu make the bow and arrow. As far as we know, Uryu, he's had no problem absorbing Reishi. I mean, he even, when he had that bow and he snapped the thing off, he was absorbing Reishi at an extraordinary rate. He pretty much annihilated Mayuri. And that would be contradictory to the scope of the power scheme of Yuha and Hashval. So, what is it about Uryu, per se, that gives him the potential to surpass someone like Yuha? So, when I think about it from a timeline perspective, now that we know that from a timeline perspective, Bazz-B, Jugo, they're all above like 1,000 years, right? So I have to question, are there other Quincy's that were born? There should be around 5 of them or 6 of them. There should have been other Quincy's that were born every 200 years with very similar powers to that of Jugo and Yuha. So where are they? Like, I'm not too sure. But, I mean, maybe they were killed off when it came to the battles between Quincy and Shinigami. Maybe they couldn't survive because they didn't know what they were. They were treated as outcasts, so on and so forth. Like, I'm not too sure. But it's intriguing nonetheless. And it leaves room for some thought about these special Quincy that are born once every 2 centuries. Now, moving on to, and that's it. That's a chapter. Chapter 633, done. Moving on to the next chapter, because after that, the chapter ends off with Hashval pretty much, you know, slashing at Bazz-B after he blocks the arrow. And he blocks the arrow in both the past and in the present. Then we cut over to this chapter where, in essence, it's Bazz-B doing his best, but Hashval, in essence, punking Bazz-B. Jugo, Hashval, he slices him down. And he cuts his arm off, it cuts his right shoulder from here down, and Bazz-B's on the ground, bleeding out, losing consciousness. That's how it ends off. Now, granted, he pulled some, you know, pretty cool shit at the beginning, where he went to Burner Finger 4, and It looked pretty nice, but he got his arm cut off. And the actual blade, at first I thought that it was Jugo like doing an air cut, but now I think it was more or less Jugo. I now think it was more or less not Jugo, but Bazz-B. Bazz-B, his arm was sent flying, and his arm was what cut that structure in the background. That's what I'm thinking that happened. So regardless, he ends up with the burner full fingers. All right, there's 5 burner fingers. It's like some insane laser, like it looks like a damn Star Wars phaser. It just looks awesome. And no, yeah, Jugo, bro, I'm behind you. Slice over. And in the past, what was fascinating was you had Captain Jugo, because Yuha rose from the captain level, and Bazz-B, after 3 years, he actually joins the Stern Ritter, or he joins the Quincy army, whatever it is. Because we don't know when he becomes a Star Knight, per se, but we know later on he does. And pretty much, you have Hubert, who's a vice captain, under Captain Jugo. But because Jugo is kind of inexperienced, he has to gain knowledge from Hubert, who has more experience in, matters of warfare and whatnot. However, at the same time, Hubert has these very sadistic, villainous tendencies, and he was going to go and try and kill Bazz-B, but the law states you can't do that. And he's like, well, not a big deal if no one finds out. Jugo's like, I'm always watching. I understand that at this point in time, Yuha and myself, we are the same. We are 2 sides of the same fucking coin. All right, he is day, I am night, and so on and so forth. I was thinking that maybe there'd be like some struggle there with Jugo and Bazz-B, still talking about killing Yuha, Jugo kind of struggling with that, but no. Just 3 years later, fully immersed, fully subjugated. Like, yeah, like I'm in, I'm a part of this. Don't fuck with Yuha. Abide by the laws. I'm always watching. It is what it is. So that was fascinating, and that's it really. So, overall, the chapters. Chapter 633, that chapter I think is relatively okay. Not that bad at all. I did call, Bazz-B's reaction, that jealousy, that envy, that saltiness. However, the next chapter, this chapter, 634, I think is actually better. Because, number 1, has pretty decent fight scenes. Like, they're not extraordinary at all. But it's pretty cool panels of, Bazz-B getting his arm cut off, the blade cutting the structure, then the full burner fingers. Yeah, that was good. That was a very good panel. The best panel probably like in the entirety of the chapter. And Hashwall, it doesn't matter how powerful your destruction capacity is. I'm gonna speed blitz you. Blood. And then he says, I thought that losing to you would be far more painful than this. So he's basically saying that like the emotions that he had, the friendship that they had back in the day, I mean, like, there is no remainder of that. Like at this point in time, it's just simply put like you are my enemy and I died to you, or I lost you at least, because whether he's actually dead or not, I'm not too sure. He could be unconscious, that's it, but who knows. So we're not too sure on what Jugo's actually going to do when it comes to killing Yuha. But at this point in time, it's safe to say that Jugo, he's on board. Like his majesty is the absolute, the ultimate. I'm not gonna try and betray him because I am the other side of this coin. So that's it. The chapters overall. First one, okay. Second one, okay plus. And that's it. So King Lightning, rate the video, comment, subscribe as always. Have a nice one.
Let me suck it and I can have power and I can give you power. Come on, jump it out and take it now. I need it now. Give me the blood. You're so hot. Good looking.